All right, I'll start by introducing myself a little bit. My name is Ryan Hazen. I see some familiar faces in here. I see some new faces in here as well. I'm an instructional technologist at Casper College for my 9-to-5 job, but I'm also a consultant for colleges, K-12 institutions, and private companies. I build Moodles. I make onboarding training in Moodles. And I do some web design and some personal technology coaching as well. I'm here today to talk to you about H5P in the morning and workshop in the afternoon. And I hope that what we talk about today can help you improve the delivery of what I'm sure is already excellent teaching to students, but not only improve the delivery of content to students, but also save you time and housekeeping so you can focus more on developing those meaningful relationships with your students. So the first thing I want you to do is go ahead and log on and make sure that you've got, I'm going to open these up. We're going to have Moodle H5P January 18 session. I'm going to open it up for you just so you can see it. And I'll bring you my content yesterday real quick.
What if we don't have that showing up on our...
That's why I want us to go ahead and try and...
I just refreshed
Yeah. So I didn't show it. I didn't have it shown just yet. So go ahead and refresh it and make sure that you see it. And I want to talk to you, first of all, generally about what H5P is. Has anybody used H5P before? Okay, it's a pretty new tool. And what H5P stands for is HTML5 package. So HTML5 is a language, new language, that's kind of built on an old language, as all languages are. And it was made to have responsiveness built in. So whether you pick it up on a phone, on a tablet, or on a laptop or desktop, it's going to adjust itself to the size of your browser so that it looks nice. And it's also meant to be interactive, so that users can actually interact with it and it can change and respond to what they do. Old HTML just sort of presented content to you and you got to look at it. You could click buttons and it would take you to different pages, but the HTML itself didn't change around. And what H5P is it's a tool that helps people who don't write code make use of this code. So it helps you sort of click through menus and use familiar authoring tools to make use of this HTML5 language. So without confusing you too much more about that, I just wanted to frame it out for you. Let's just take a look at it and see what it can do. So I have created a video to sort of share with you here. Well, I didn't create this video, I just made the H5P part. But one thing that you'll notice, remember I was talking about responsiveness. As I zoom in and out, that video stays the same aspect ratio, stays the same size relative to itself. So whether I'm on a phone, which would look something like this, or on a desktop, which would look more like this, you can see that that video retains its size. It's not going to get all distorted. It's not going to cut off. It's going to dynamically get smaller and larger as I change the size of the window. The other thing that we've done here is, you know what, I changed a few things yesterday during the workshop. Let me just edit some things. And I just want to make sure that it looks the way that I want it to look. and I'll show you all of these fun editing tools once we go through the video. I just have a couple items right here that are going to get in our way. Yeah, it's when I first saw this, I was very excited too. All right, so here we go. This is sort of Moodle.org's introduction video to their learning management system. I just used it because it was a short, convenient video. So here we go. We're going to play our video. Anybody know why I might not have any volume? Anybody familiar with this room? Oh well, let's imagine that there's volume. So in any case, we've got a video here. This is going to bother me. To find out a way to turn this volume up.
I think somebody just went to get Mike.
Oh, no, I know what it is. It's just going to be really loud. Turn it down.
No sound, right?
I just need to select the correct output. It went to the Yeti.
Yep. Okay.
Meet Maria. Maria is an educator at Orange Academy, teaching a variety of courses, including media studies, economics, and history.
All right, so what happened here is this video started playing, and we stopped it at a particular point where we wanted the student to think about the content of the video. And then we provided a question right in the middle of the video. So this allows us to say, okay, what does Maria teach? I hope you are all listening. Is it political science, literature, and communications? I don't know. What? I made this. I know the right answer. Oh, no, it's wrong. So not only did we have a multiple choice question here, but we've provided feedback to the students. Incorrect. Rewatch the video and choose your answers more carefully. I put this little note in here for you all. For instructors, you may use this area for subjective feedback to students for instructional purposes. So, as a student is watching the video, when they get the incorrect answer, you have the option to provide them a little piece of feedback to correct their thinking about whatever the topic is that they're learning, whatever your content is. So, I have built in here, and all of this, of course, because Moodle is so customizable, you can change, you can choose not to have feedback, you can choose to get rid of the retry button, you can choose to take away the show solution button. This is all up to us as the educator. So I'm going to retry, and I think it's media studies, economics, and world history.
Because
There we go.
uses Moodle,
Great.
their learners can easily access these courses, check their progress, and see what they need to do. Maria teaches her courses in English, but Moodle works in 100 languages. Shoot.
True or false?
True.
Yeah. All right, great.
She and her learners are able to quickly talk to each other in Moodle and stay in touch through the messaging and notification functionality. Maria gets her learners to share ideas in forums, engages them with media, and uses quizzes to check their understanding. They can submit assignments on the go from their smartphones, and Maria can comfortably grade them wherever she chooses.
All right. Moodle allows users to communicate with teachers using the blank feature built into the system. Okay. Students can submit assignments. Complete in, oh, I should get rid of that in, quizzes, and smartphones. All right, great.
Moodle's tools help Maria inspire and support her learners. Moodle is used in every country in the world by educators just like Maria, in K-12 classrooms and higher education institutions.
This is my favorite question type. It's also the most complicated to set up, but we're going to go through that. That seems to be how things are. My favorite things are always the most complicated ones. Drag and drop the name of each continent where Moodle is used by educators. Honestly, this is kind of a poor, because this is really testing my knowledge of what the continents are called rather than what was in the, but I needed to find a way to use a drag and drop image question for you guys. Yeah.
Moodle is also widely used for training, professional development, and inductions in many organizations and businesses of various sizes. There are hundreds of millions of Moodle users globally, and this number keeps rising. What makes Moodle the world's open source learning platform is our commitment to open processes and development to build and support together with a huge and diverse global community of users. Our mission is to empower educators like Maria with powerful, flexible tools that will contribute to and result in improving this development. Explore the various ways to get started with your own Moodle site at moodle.com.
All right, we've got to complete the summary. Moodle is extraneous and teachers are better off without it. Moodle is good at handling assignments, but communication is best done via email. Moodle is a free and fully featured online classroom capable of managing communications, assignments, assessments, and performance tracking. Of course I would say that. All right, so it's going to give me a summary of all the questions that I answered. And I need to make sure that I submit my answers up here at the top. This is the one thing about interactive video that you're going to want to show students. Make sure you click Submit Answers when you're finished so that we get the scores passed over the gradebook, because this is the last submit all and finish button. Moodle likes these sort of buttons, and so does H5P. Great, my answers have been submitted. So, the thing about H5P is that it's not just interactive video. Interactive video is the thing that I like the most because it combines the functionality of several different H5P modules. There's video delivery, there's, like this is going to be that responsiveness that I showed you when I dragged the window and made it different sizes. That responsiveness is built into H5P. You won't get that if you just have a video embedded in a page. Well, actually, I don't know. I think Boost. I use, at Carroll, we use the More theme, so the Moodle I work in most looks substantially different. I think Boost might be fully responsive. But you're going to get that. But then all of these different question types inside of the interactive video, you can create them independently of the interactive video. So it doesn't have to be in context of a video for you to create a drag and drop image question or a drag and drop text question or any of the other question types that are built into H5P. So really quickly, what sort of applications do you see in your disciplines for this interactive video tool? Anybody want to share? Yeah.
What comes to mind for me is virtual field trips. So we teach a lot of geology, and some students can take class, and they read this out, and I can put together a field trip in their region, and then they could, kind of go through the area.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. The first thing when you said geology field trips, for me, is I'm imagining, like, you stop the video, you use a screen snap from the video of sedimentary layers or something, and you have them drag and drop labels onto the layers, or maybe you have an aerial photograph of an area that has different geological features. And yeah, there's so many possibilities. My brain just sort of blew up. That's a great idea. What other applications can you think of in other disciplines? Anatomy. It's huge. What would you do with anatomy?
With my students, they have to identify structures, also with injuries.
Oh,
Mechanisms of injuries and things of that nature.
great. Yeah, and the great thing about this is you can, with injuries, you can identify processes related to them, and you can ask them, you can stop them after something happened in the video and say, okay, what was this the right thing to do? Was this the wrong thing to do? What would you call this thing that was done? Or maybe you have a video of somebody who's gotten injured. What intervention is appropriate right now? That's a really powerful tool, because so often we give students videos and we don't have any evidence that they watched them. Much less do we have evidence that they learn not just anything, but the things that we wanted them to learn from the video. Because H5P stops you and makes you think about the specific part of the video that you want the student to ingest. So that's really good. What other applications can we see for this?
Well, I'm hoping to flip my classroom the next couple of years, and this suddenly opens up the interactivity of a person lecture where you present some information and you stop and you ask the students some follow-up questions. And somebody can do that. You can just stop the video and ask them the question. And unlike in the classroom where one person gives the answer, somebody can make everybody give the answer.
You just nailed something that is really important about changing the way that we think about lectures, because so often faculty and teachers, myself included, especially when I was an 8th grade teacher, I would say, have students get answers to me, and if one student has the correct answer, I make this erroneous assumption that everyone in the room would give me the correct answer, and it becomes an exercise in vanity rather than an exercise in getting the students to engage in the content. I first realized this when I switched from asking questions to a single student before I had iPads in the room and before we had saturated our students with technology. I'd made this simple switch to having everybody write down an answer for every lecture question that I gave out. And that universal engagement is really what you're looking for, rather than, oh, you know all the answers, so I'm just going to have you answer them, and that's going to make me feel good because I'm the teacher, and I've got people. Yeah, so that's a really good point. It's a great point. What other applications? Any other applications for this that we can think of?
For me, it'll be videoing treatment interventions, treatment settings, and the students will be able to stop and pause and pick up on whatever maybe the person stated or what their physical things they did were.
Oh, that's wonderful, because we have so much subjectivity in those areas where a patient comes in and they say something ambiguous. Like, a patient doesn't come in and say, I'm suffering from, I don't know, heart palpitations or whatever it is. They'll say something like, my chest feels fluttery or something like that, right? So when they have those things, what a patient would actually say, rather than the clinical term that you're teaching, you can stop and say, okay, select all of the things that might be indicated by a patient's thing. And so it can definitely bring in that critical thinking, interpretive action that you normally don't get until you're actually in a clinical setting. But we want to make sure that we have students prepared to do that once they're in there. That's a really great idea. Anything else?
In the chemistry lab, we are required semi-legally to go through safety rules and have them sign a safety contract or document. I think this is a more real-time proof that you heard this, you understand it, and you agree that you're going to abide by the various rules that we have for behavior and performance in the lab.
I do a lot of that kind of work for both medical institutions and medical device manufacturers, and I use H5P for exactly that. Because we can have a record of who went through and who saw it, and if we need to say later, yes, this student went through and they answered in the affirmative to all of these questions about the safety protocols that they need to follow. This is the way to do it without spending in-class time to take care of it. I would recommend to do both, you know, but in terms of tracking what's required that you've done, it's a lot easier to point to evidence on a learning management system that they did it. Say, we followed up in class, of course, but this meets the requirements of training them on this important safety, so we're not spraying each other with hydrochloric acid or something. Go ahead.
We're all required to now do census reporting during that first week, so I think that we could do something combining our welcome to course, who am I, even syllabus videos with this for our census reporting to kind of cover a lot of those different areas all at once. Make sure that we hit the main parts and they understand the main parts.
I love the idea of an interactive syllabus. I use Moodle Quiz for that personally in my freshman seminar classes. But H5P is definitely a tool that could be, I, of course, developed my syllabus quiz years ago before this was available. One of my favorite questions is, I have this requirement in my syllabus that you read my emails and respond if necessary by the end of the following business day. It's a really simple requirement, I think. But it's amazingly difficult for students to understand. And because many of them don't have this idea of what a business day is, so I've given them scenarios. I email you at 4:23 p.m. on Friday, asking you to send me something back. What's the latest that you can respond to me? And the answer in that case is 5 p.m. on Monday. Pretty normal for us, right? But if I email you at 6:30 p.m. on Friday, it's 5 p.m. on Tuesday, because the business day is ended on Friday, and I want you don't receive that email until Monday. The same is true for me and students. If I don't receive your email, especially until 8 a.m. on Monday, I'm not going to respond to you until 5 p.m. the next day. It's important for them to know that, because they can't expect for me to get back to them right away about everything. Establishing the boundaries is important. And then, of course, I go into, what if I email you at 3:30 p.m. on March the 4th, which happens to be a holiday. So now they've got to go look at the calendar and see. So so giving them these opportunities, not just to hear me say that, but to interact and to have questions and try and use that information. Absolutely crucial. It's hilarious to watch them try and figure out these increasingly complex scenarios about communication expectations. Anything else? This is great. This is excellent. Let's get into building one of these. So, do you have access to a sandbox? I think everybody should have access to something called like Sandbox or Workshop or something like that. It might be in the future. On that dashboard tab, there's a future tab. I know some people had to go into the future to find their workshops yesterday. All right, so we're going to start with add an activity or resource. Does anybody have trouble finding a sandbox to work in?
Just body order.
Okay, that's fine. I want to make sure.
I'm in the sandbox, but there's not a add an activity or resource.
So to start, yeah, sorry, I always leave this out. Click the cog wheel in the top right and turn editing on.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and add an activity or resource, and we're looking for interactive content. It'll look like that. It'll have that H5P icon, and it'll say interactive content to the right. Select that and click Add. And this is where we'll begin adding our interactive content. So the first thing that you're going to notice is that H5P has a lot of different options. And remember, when we talk about H5P, what we're talking about is an HTML5 content package. So it's not just the interactive video, which is this tool right here. There's all kinds of other stuff that we can do. And I'll talk you through creating a course presentation. All of those questions, you'll notice, like drag the words, fill in the blanks, mark the words, multiple choice, single choice, true, false, all of that stuff. You can use those questions independent of the interactive video. So if you just need students to do that geography identification without having to contextualize it in a video, you can do that with the drag and drop. If you just want them to identify the carpals, or I learned that yesterday. I learned something yesterday about anatomy. Then you can just have, you know, the picture of the bones of the hand, and they can drag and drop the labels onto those sections of the hand. You can do all of that independent of the video. I'm going to walk you through the interactive video because it's a good way to wrap everything together and develop the skills. So go ahead and click interactive video as your choice. And it'll take a moment to load. And so the neat thing about H5P is that it has a little tour with it. So if you kind of forget where to start, you can say, okay, I want to go next, adding video. Start by adding a video. And it highlights the thing you need to click to begin adding the video. And then the next thing you have to do is add interactions. That's great. You can click exit, or you can click through them just to get that out of the way. We don't need those. But if at any time you need to know, the tour is right up there in the right-hand corner. So now what we need to do is we need to find ourselves a video. I suggest that you, I don't know if you have a video somewhere on YouTube that you like to use in class. If you do, go ahead and find that. If not, you can get a cat video or a mouse video or a dog video or whatever.
It's still loading.
Refresh that page if you're having trouble loading. Click the little circle arrow in the top left.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes we just need to be insistent with our.
Still not.
Did you reload back there?
I pushed reload, but it's still.
Okay.
Oh, there it comes.
There you go. You can, yeah, just click exit. It's fine. And then open up another tab up here. All right, and in that tab, go ahead and find a video that you could use.
Percy Bysshe Shelley. And
I'm going to use Percy Shelley.
Brian, where did you go to get that? You went right from within the H5P?
No. The H5P, I've got a couple of tabs up here. So H5P is in one tab. I opened a new tab by clicking the plus button.
Right.
And then I just searched YouTube Percy Shelley. So I happen to have gotten my undergraduate degree in Romantic poets and 17th century British politics. So I'm going to use this very dry video that I hope you'll all enjoy. But it's a good example because I kind of know the content, and we all have British accents, which I like. So when I have that video, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have your video up. You're going to click the share button down below that video. And then you're going to click copy right here. And that's going to copy this link right here for you. And then we're going to open up that tab again. Head back to Moodle and click the little plus box here. And then we're going to paste our YouTube link. You can right click and click paste, or you can, like I did, use the Control-V paste keyboard shortcut. You can also upload a video file. If you click here, if you have a video on your computer, maybe that you made or that came with your textbook or something like that, you can upload it here. I would recommend that you not upload videos to Moodle. Moodle's not a great video host. It's many things, but it's not a video hosting platform. It can do it, but the YouTube is way better in terms of how quickly it delivers the video, how many times it can deliver the video at once, those sorts of things. And I think you have YouTube accounts built in with your Casper College login. So I think you can log into YouTube with your Casper College accounts and upload videos to there if you're making your own videos. So that's the way that I would recommend that you do it. Upload it to YouTube first, and then get the link and paste it in here. And I know that people at the DLC can help you with that process if you need help with the wither-twos and the y4s of that. So once you've got your YouTube video there, go ahead and click Insert. I don't worry about editing the copyright. If you have, because the copyright's built into YouTube, all of the author information is already there in YouTube. So with a YouTube video, you don't have to worry about it. That's an additional advantage. If you had uploaded a video to Moodle itself, it wouldn't come with its own copyright information. So you'd have to say, especially if you got it from Pearson or something, they're really prickly about owning the choices you make. You would want to edit that copyright and put copyright information, title, author was Pearson, the year, the source, all of that. So, but you don't have to worry about that with the YouTube video because it's already built into the original host. You're not actually copying the video. You're just pointing people to where it is. It's the difference between photocopying a book and handing somebody a photocopy of the book and telling them that book is in the library and you can go find it yourself. See what I'm saying there? I could do a whole day on copyright. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole though. So H5P will tell you the next step is to add interactions. Go ahead and click Add Interactions. Here's our helpful tour again. To add an interaction, drag an element from the toolbar and drop it onto the video. I'll show you how to do that. You can just click Exit for that. So now is where we start thinking about how we want our users to interact with this video. Generally, the way that I do this when I'm designing interactions for a video is I click play.
Looking back on the early 1820s, we can identify the end of the great age of English Romantic poetry. Wordsworth and Coleridge were already past their peak. Keats died in 1821. Byron's death came 3 years later, and in the intervening time, the career of the final great English poet of his age was tragically cut short. His name was Percy Shelley. Born in 1792, Shelley was perhaps the most radical thinker of all the Romantic poets.
All right. So, Shelley is the most radical thinker of all the Romantic poets. That's an important piece of content that I want my students to interact with. It's actually central to this video. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a multiple choice question that says, who was the most radical of all the Romantic poets? I'm going to do so by using this toolbar up here. But first, I want you to find a place in your individual videos where you want to add a multiple choice question so that we can all do it together. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. You can play those videos, and you can find a place where you want to add a multiple choice question. Maybe you already know a good location. So yeah, go ahead and play. It's going to get loud in here, and that's okay. What's that?
Like our money off.
Yeah, some of you might need to use the headphones over here. Feel free to come and grab a headphone. I just want to make sure that we have something that's kind of useful for you once you're done with it. This part of the learning process. All right. So I hope we're all at a good place in the video. I'm going to go ahead and move on just to keep things going. It's okay if you haven't got a great place. We can always delete it and change it later. So what we're going to add now is the multiple choice question. It looks like 3 bars with a check and 2 X's up at the top, right there at the center. I'm going to go ahead and just click it, and it'll bring up this editing area. Now, H5P allows you a lot of flexibility. That's great because it's empowering you as the teacher to do neat stuff and to change your learning flow based on what your expectations are. I'm going to recommend to you a very specific way to set this up, which is the way that it was set up in the video that I showed you at the beginning, where the question pops up, stops the video, and then goes away as soon as they've answered it. In order to do that, we're going to change our display time, first of all, to 1 second. So wherever you are in your video, this first one, 33, that's where it begins. And then 34 is where it disappears. So it'll be visible for 1 second. But if we pause the video, 1 second is more than enough. We want the video to stop, and we want them to look at this question. I'm also, instead of a button, I'm going to use a poster, because a button is just a little thing that shows up on the video, and they have to go and take action to click it to make it show up. We want the student's experience with this video to be interrupted in a way that is just obvious. This question is what you need to pay attention to right now. So I'm going to change the title of my question to something that I understand. The title is not the question itself. So go ahead and put the title in. Most radical romantic poet. And then the question itself comes below that media area. So my question is, who was the most radical thinker of the romantic poets? You go ahead and type your question that's relevant to your content. And then we'll move on to the available options once you've typed your question. These are the possible answers. Shelley is the correct answer for me here. So I type in Shelley and I check correct.
You type that in the first one as well as come up with? Is it random?
There is a setting,
Later?
yeah, under behavioral settings, there is randomized answers, which is checked by default. You can uncheck that, of course, if you want them to show up in a particular order. But before I move on from this first answer, that's the correct answer, I'm going to use the tips and feedback. Tip text is, it'll give a little eye information icon on that answer, and the student can click it before they answer the question to learn something about that answer. Maybe you want to say, hey, what did the video just say, or something like that, or what have we learned about this process or that process. And then with the correct answer, I like to include the feedback in message displayed if answer is selected, message displayed if answer is not selected. So I want to say, if the student selects this answer, I want to tell them, great work. All right, so the correct answer, I'm going to give them a little color here. Great work. This is correct. Shelley was an outspoken opponent of the Anglican Church, a supporter of Irish independence, and a staunch supporter of women's rights. Those are the sort of things that I want them to know about Shelley when they go through this video. Now, if answer is not selected, so if they select any of the other incorrect answers that I'm going to add, they're going to see this. Incorrect. While all the Romantics were radical thinkers, Percy Shelley was by far the most outspoken, taking stands against they'll say these are the three things I want them to see. Taking stands against the Anglican Church, supporting Irish independence, and supporting women's rights. Independence and campaigning. So, what I've done here is, so Shelley was the most radical thinker. Whether or not they choose Shelley in this question, I want them to encounter these three pieces of feedback. Opposing the Anglican Church, supporting Irish independence, and supporting women's rights. In the early 1800s, these were pretty radical things for a British guy to be going around doing, right? So whether or not they select this answer, they're going to get a little more color. They're going to get a little more context to this answer. And now I can just go, now that I've, in this correct answer, I've given feedback for if they select or if they don't select, I can just go through and put in the other incorrect answers. So Byron, I want to add another option here because I'm going to put a couple other incorrect answers. Wordsworth. And Coleridge. So you still have, for each of these incorrect answers, options for tips and feedback. What I've done is I've given uniform feedback for all of these different ones. But it's entirely possible that if you select Coleridge, I might want to say something about Coleridge in particular. So I could give feedback specific to if you select Coleridge. Right here, you know, for Coleridge. Maybe he was a pretty radical guy. Byron was a really radical guy too. And I could say, yeah, while Byron, you know, was known for cavorting around Europe and being kind of a wild guy, he wasn't really a political radical. He was still in the House of Lords or whatever, something like that. Just so you know that you have those options. If you want to add that sort of color to your question. So now we're ready to save. So one thing about H5P, these little done buttons, these remove and done buttons up here, when I'm done with this question, this is what I need to check. So go ahead and click done. And I'm going to adjust the size of this by clicking on these little corner boxes and dragging it out. Because I want it to take over the whole screen. I want it to stop. I want it to take over the screen. I want the student presented with this question, whether they want to or not. Okay, is anybody having trouble getting the multiple choice question? I'm happy to stop and just make sure that we're all there before I move on to the next question type.
Mine, the correct answer has a blue circle with an eye on it.
So did you fill out the tip text?
I thought it did.
Yeah, that's what that is. So just click on this. Put your pencil up there. Let's go down to the correct answer. And let's get rid of the tip. And then click done. So the tip and the feedback are two different things. And this can be really confusing because they put the tip text box right there at the first area. So a couple things, everybody watch what we're going to do here. If I'm somewhere else in the video and I need to find that question that I just edited, I just click on the little circle that represents where that question is in the video. So I'm going to click on that circle and it'll take me back to the question. Now I want to edit that question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the question. The first thing that comes up is the position and the size. I'm going to click it again and it'll open that little editing menu. And then I click the pencil icon to edit and it brings the question back up. Now, what some of us might have done is had the information here in the tip. The tip text will put a little eye icon on that answer. You can give a tip for every answer if you wanted to. But remember, what I put in was message to display if answer is selected and message to display if answer is not selected. So you have those three options for each individual answer. When I click done, notice there's that little eye there because I put the tip in for that particular answer. If I put a tip in for every answer, all of them would have eyes. And what that can do for the student, I'll go ahead and display this for us. You just stay where you are. You don't have to do this. But just so we can see what a student would see in that instance. Is the student can hover over that eye and see whatever you put in the tip text before making a selection. So it's funny that we have formative assessment tools here. On this list, I would put H5P because we should think of H5P as a formative assessment rather than a summative assessment. So it's something that's meant to teach us rather than something that's meant to assess our knowledge. And that's why you're going to find things like a tip. So you can prevent skipping forward in a video, and I'll show you how to do that as we go on. But for right now, I can click Show Tip, and you notice it gives me that little, this is a tip, before I actually make the selection. So let's say I select Byron and I check Byron incorrect. While the Romantics or radical thinkers, Percy Shelley was by far the most outspoken, etc. That's what I put in there. So the students are learning something here as part of this process. It doesn't bother me that they got the question wrong. That's totally okay. What matters is their interaction with it. So I know that they're paying attention and I know that they're learning something from this process. So I'm going to go back into editing and where you guys hopefully still are.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Do students have to answer the question to get the video to play on?
They have to answer the questions to have a grade recorded in the grade book. And that grade in the grade book is your indication that they've watched the video. Because I hear this request from faculty all the time. How do I know that my students watched the video? There's a setting under behavioral settings. You guys can open this behavioral settings menu while we're here editing. And there is a prevent skipping forward in the video button. So if I want, now, before I do this, let me say that there's any number of things a student can do while the video is playing and be prevented from skipping forward. For example, they could Facebook like this, or they could have an earbud in, listening to something, or they could literally be drinking and listening while it's playing, right? But you have, H5P gets us closer to the assurance that they've watched the video than just putting the video up there without any interaction at all. And if you have If you say, you know, I don't want them to retry, for instance, here's override retry button. If I disable that retry button, they get one shot at every question. And if they understand that and you weight their grade appropriately, then they're much more inclined to pay attention to the video and try and get the answer right to begin with. And you can articulate this directly to your students and say, I've set it up this way because I want you to watch the video. I'm not kidding about this. You have to watch the video. So when you combine the prevent skipping forward and override the retry button, those are really useful tools, and they're going to get you much farther down the road to your student having watched the video than simply posting a link to the video in your Moodle page.
Now, is that one retry? So let's say a student watches the video and gets a really, really bad score on it. Can they go back in later, and is it still that one try so they can still watch the video, or does it?
They can still watch. It will not record a second attempt. They can still watch the video. H5P knows who they are because they're logged in to Moodle, and you only get one shot with that. Yeah.
How did you get to the override the retry?
So if you're looking at this editor, just scroll down a little bit.
Oh, okay, it's down there.
Expand the behavioral settings.
Okay.
If I prevent skipping forward in a video, this disables the navigation completely. So I always would do show button for rewinding 10 seconds. That allows them to go back. We would always want them to be able to skip back and rewatch a part of the video. I think that's good practice. So if you're going to prevent skipping forward, I would show button for rewinding as well.
I don't have that. I'm in that behavior.
I don't skip.
Let me see.
Are you in question editing or video?
Oh, okay.
Here? Or is it? I'm in the question.
Oh, you're in the question. Yeah, I clicked on.
Right here.
Right there, yeah. So that is one thing about H5P that can be a little wonky with setting it up. The menus that come up for editing, because each question has behavioral settings, and then the video itself has behavioral settings. And there's this sort of Russian doll effect where you have a menu inside of the menu inside of the menu. So it's important to remember what context you're working in, and it can really easily get confusing until you've practiced building these a little bit. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to...
of all the romantic poets.
One of the cool things about this is we can say...
As a student at Oxford University, he was expelled for publishing a pamphlet
Play it a
on
little
atheism.
more quickly.
He became a friend of the philosopher William Godwin, an early socialist with a profound dislike for any form of authority.
Ah, sorry, I have to be a student to do that. Never mind.
The influence of Godwin permeated his first important work, Queen Mab, a poem completed in the Lake District that had so inspired Wordsworth and Coleridge. It is a long, philosophical poem, a radical work that also revealed the young Shelley's respect.
I'm not going to make you listen to Queen Mab.
Queen Mab is really a kind of pamphlet poem. It's not Shelley at his great imaginative, which really isn't until 2 or 3 years later, say 1816, what makes it just a revolutionary character, is that he thinks that everything should come down. Started with, he loved the young.
Let me find the end of Queen Mab.
Antoninus lived, a cowed and hypocritical monk.
Cowed and hypocritical monk.
And deceives.
Okay, that's the end of Queen Mab. So I'm going to ask a question here, and I'm going to use a drag text question type. So let's find a place in your video where you could have a paragraph where students drag some text in.
I can't understand that.
I'm just making a random question.
It's okay. You can make up random questions if you don't have time to do the design. That's no big deal. All right, so I'll go ahead and show you guys how to do this drag text question. So find some point in the video, a completely random one if you don't have a reasonable one. I just wanted to give you a chance to, if you want to make something that's real, we can kill two birds with one stone here. So I'm going to click the drag text question. And it's going to open our familiar question editor. So what are the three things that I'm going to do here first that I recommend for my question? Change the time. Great. 28. Pause the video and select poster. Those are just my preferred settings. You can do them any way you like to, and I would encourage you to experiment with the other options. But as far as the original video that I showed you, these are the first three things you should do. Okay, my question title is going to be Shelley and the Anglicans. Generally, the task description, the default task description that's in there, drag the words into the correct boxes, is going to be good enough. Unless you wanted to add something else to that, that's going to tell the students what they need to do. Great thing about H5P is that it knows that users are new to this. This tool was created like 2 years ago, and it was just added to your Moodle last semester. So this is brand new. This is the newest thing that you've got. And it'll give you text instructions for how to do this. It even gives you example text. So let's go ahead and type a paragraph, and it couldn't be easier. You just put asterisks next to the words on either side of the word that you want to be the drag and drop word where they come in. So I'm going to say, Percy Shelley was an outspoken opponent of the Anglican Church. So now what students are going to see is they're going to have the opportunity to drag Anglican into that space. He believed that religion should be personal. So yeah, if you're having trouble finding it from here, you just scroll down in that contextual box until you get to, it'll say Oslo is the capital of Norway, I think is the example text that you'll find there.
Is this under behavioral settings or?
No, we started here. see where we are. Oh, okay. Quicker move. We just chose the wrong question. Okay. Where do you want it? Drag text. You had drag and drop. So let's make those 3 changes at the top before we make that one. This, yeah. Pause video and twister. Okay. This is where we're going to do our type.
Is there a limit to the size of the drag text?
If there is, I have not found it yet. But even if it wasn't limited, you'd want to limit yourself because there's only so much space. So if you need to have another drag text a little bit later. All right, so my drag and drop question, I've written it. I've put my little asterisks around the pieces of text that I want to be dragged in and where I want them to be dragged in. I'm going to go ahead and click done. And then I'm going to resize my question. Drag the words into the correct boxes. So this is sort of a summary of what that poem, Queen Mab, is about. It's asking them to hear the poem as it's read in the video, and then drag and drop these words into their appropriate boxes. Is anybody having trouble creating a drag and drop question?
Is there a way to make it automatically size it to the same size every time? I mean, you can go through and change how it's size, but
That's one of the things that is still in development. They're still like optimizing H5P. Like Moodle, H5P is free and open source, and it's just some like dedicated dudes somewhere writing the code and giving it away. So yeah, the default, they accept, they have little forums and stuff, and I've gone on there and I've said, you should probably have poster be the default 1 second and pause video, because I find that's what faculty most want, and have the poster be the actual full size of the video. So it's in there, it's in the hopper. There are other people that have different opinions.
that OCD just kicks in if they're not the same size.
I know.
So the math instructor, is there any way for us to tie math fonts in there?
No, but you can do images, which is,
like the drag and drop, if they put it in a paper.
yeah, you can put in an image of your radicals and sigmas and whatever else thetas. I don't know. I'm weak in math. I'm a
But you
poet
can show
guy.
me how to drop those images in later.
Yeah, that's the next question type we're gonna get to.
Okay. And then if we wanted to add wrong answers, we could just add them in our question with asterisks around them.
Well, that's one thing that this does poorly, is it would have like, there's only a one-to-one relationship here, so you wouldn't be able to have additional incorrect answers down here. They would show up as having like boxes at the bottom, and to get it correct, students would have to drag them in there. So that's one weakness. You could, when we do this image question, you'll see there's kind of a hack of the way to do that, but yeah, it's just not built into this quite yet. Yet another good suggestion for the developers of H5P. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and keep playing here.
Queen Mab is really a kind of pamphlet poem. It's not Shelley at its great imaginative, which really isn't totally.
Texts feed into pro-free love, pro-vegetarianism,
very much against the meeting, so.
All right. I'm going to do a true-false question. Go ahead and find a place in your video. I'll give you about a minute to do that, and then we'll select true-false.
So if you use this visual that you've made up yourself, say like when you're introducing yourself to the class, okay? And then use that, then the interactive on that, or that not as good because it's bigger from another source. Is that what you're saying?
If you make your own video, what I would do is I would put it in YouTube first, and then use the YouTube link like we did for this. Yeah, yeah. Because Moodle doesn't do a great job of posting.
Yourself up for YouTube.
Well, you can set. I would recommend an unlisted setting so that people can just search you up on YouTube. That's what I do with all of my videos that are hosted on YouTube. And then additionally, if you log into Google with your Casper email, which I think you can, those will allow you to say only people that have logged in with @casper.edu email addresses can view. So you can restrict it further to people that are in your organization. And again, for creating the video and uploading it to YouTube, I would just get with people at the DLC and say, it'll take them about a half hour to get you all equipped up to do that. It's not too difficult. I walk people through it all the time. Carol's got Google integration too, just like Casper does. So. All right, so I'm going to click true/false question here. I only want it to display for that 1 second. 231. Pause video. Poster. Percy Shelley was an outspoken supporter of vegetarianism. That's true. He was the original hippie. And you just select the correct answer down here. And click done. True/false question. Really easy to make. So that'll stop the video right there and present them with this question about vegetarianism. So the next question type that we're going to do is that drag and drop image type, but it takes a little doing. So I'm going to give us a break. We're halfway through our session here. So let's go and have some water, coffee, or whatever you need, and we'll reconvene in here at 10 o'clock.
I wait for you to test it. David, and go back into the student watch.
If you just go down, you can test it as often as you want to, but if you just have to click Save and Display, you don't have to put on the student role.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just go back to my main dashboard page.
So if you click Save and Display, it'll take you right into the student view. So just scroll down and click Save and Display.
Rather than, going to the.
Yeah.
Can you share this outside of Moodle?
Yes.
Video?
There's two ways you can do it. You can either download it at the bottom. Once you save and display, you'll see those little download and embed buttons. You can either download it as an H5P file, which is an actual HTML file. You need to open it in a browser. Or you could embed it, which if you take this code right here and paste it into a website, it'll show up as a little. You know how when you're reading an article and they have a YouTube video embedded in it? They're using this embed code to do that. And you don't have to know the code, you just have to copy it and paste it. So
after Liz and I get done, we'll share our video with our workers.
Oh,
We can email it to them and like, look what we can do.
what I would do if I was going to share it within the same Moodle is I would either use the import function where you can import content from one course to another, or I don't know.
Because she's talking about showing up, just sending it.
Oh.
Email to, hey, look what I did. That's
Look
what
what I
you
did.
said.
Or if a student's like, I can't get on Moodle, or, I'm like, oh, let me email it.
Yeah, you could download it, and then they would.
What kind of file is that?
Let me see. It's an H5P file.
Oh.
So let's say that I get that file and I click it. It should open in. Oh yeah. We're gonna want to choose Chrome.
The 1820s. We can identify the end of the great age of English Romantic poetry.
No, we're gonna need to open it in something else.
I could embed it into an email.
Yeah, it should show up in an email if you paste that embed code in. Depending on their email viewer, some will show it, and some will just show it as text. Some will show it as an embedded.
So you have to hit the embed and then send that. Okay.
What I would do actually is I would just enroll, if it's another teacher, I would just enroll them in the course and then share that URL up there.
Just tell them you can do it. Don't worry about it.
Go to Moodle.
I just like to share things.
Do you have a common space for the teachers in your department? I assume you'd want to share it with other people in your department.
Now, I've requested something like that. I mean, just even Campus Live where we could share things.
Yeah.
But all they have is a Facebook page.
That's kind
What
of
about
lame.
the sandbox? So everybody has. Well, you have to have a
That's what I
shopper
said.
sandbox.
Well, we've got this one. You could just enroll them. You're working in a sandbox right now, I assume. You
Yeah,
can
but
just.
that's what I say. We don't have one that everybody goes. We have like when we do our little training, like when we did Sherry's training, then we were all in that same sandbox. But there's not one that we're all in.
Well, we can enroll people in these. So if you have somebody you want to share it with, and when we're finished, I'll help you set it up so you can just send them a link. They'll be able to log in and look at it. I'm gonna grab a coffee while we're on break, though.
I think Gary would like this.
Gary may have done it.
Yeah, we did the same 2 sessions yesterday.
He's coming in the afternoon.
Yeah, he's coming in the afternoon. He said this one was cool.
I didn't sign up for it. He ran in. I decided at the last second when I had it on. Because I was only going to come with the one.
The workshop.
Yeah, the afternoon. I did that one last. It was actually Spencer when he took it back over.
I was here last year for work. No, I couldn't. I had something to do during the workshop once.
They did real fast.
It's a little complicated.
Yeah, so then I got Heather after. They just kind of showed. Then they have to go through each of the stuff and then to the next one.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm coming back to a refresher.
Yeah, I just know he was really interested in the setup. I set up, did it Moodle? No, I set up in Google and sent a link to all my advisees. And I set up appointments in my Google account. So I didn't have to come to my door to sign up for advising. That was so nice. And then I could see who hadn't shown up. And my online students, they just
I should, very, turn it up.
Sorry. Yeah, why can't you have like, I have a
Yeah, they're hard.
Oh, yeah.
Most of them, I mean, okay, like semester one, semester two, I just as required. What did you like?
Yeah. Why don't we have this time before the day before class starts?
Yeah, I know. Well, people get over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually get like friends. Like, I just get who comes to like doing stuff. I'm like, what do you like? All this extra. I'm just not being nice to them. I'm just direct. Like, did you like statistics or did you like psychology? They would like psychology.
Say, yeah. He's giving it to you. Told me never to run the truck again. But so I got 2 o'clock. But he, because they in the program. The first I know that
I want people to, the only option business admin is let people know how to get into what culture environment. What you do with accounting? Just my niece. Stupid. Even if we had special funding. Yeah. Yeah.
total of $11. I can't remember what I had.
Yeah, it's like $10, $20. I started asking them. Well, It doesn't have a coding. We can do the 3 years writing stuff on the marketing side.
But yeah.
I see the concept.
I wouldn't take them to the casino.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, can't you bottle responsible gambling $5 in the shop?
Oh, that's a good point. All right. So it's 10 o'clock, almost. And I want to frame the image drag and drop question type because it's a little complicated. So earlier, when I gave you the example, we had an image, and it was a world map, right? It was the Yucatan, Florida, North Carolina. Those are the Outer Banks. I'm from North Carolina. Here's Greenland. And Europe, the Iberian Peninsula. And this is the toe of Italy, kicking Sicily. And yeah. All right. So I had my image, right? There are 2 different things that we're going to need to add to that image to make the drag and drop image question type work. There are drop zones, which I'm going to put in green. So I wanted them to identify North America, so I put a drop zone there. I wanted them to identify South America, so I put a drop zone there. I wanted them to identify Europe, so I put a drop zone there, etc. for all of the continents. Now within the drop zone, we need to tell H5P some things about those drop zones. So we're going to need to say, first of all, what is this drop zone called? The title. Second of all, which items can be dropped there? So which items are available to be dropped there? The way I'm going to set this up, I want the students to drop any of the items anywhere, right? I want them to be able to get the question wrong, in other words. And 3, which are correct. So we need to put all of these things in the settings for the drop zone. Now there's the next thing that we need to do is create the droppable items. I'm going to do these in purple. I should actually do North America. South America. And Europe in this example. So what we want to do is we want to say to H5P, we want to know, first of all, what's the text? Second of all, where can it go? Third of all, how many of these? So, and this might seem like an odd question, how many of these do we want? But there's 2 fundamental ways that you're going to want to set up an image drag and drop. You might say, like I did, there's a one-to-one relationship. In this question, there's a one-to-one relationship between the draggable and the droppable, right? There's only one right answer for each of these. But you might also have, in the example of the that I'm going to set up here, you might be asking yourself a question like, if I had this same setup, instead of identifying the continents, I might have NATO presence and not NATO presence. Okay? So instead of Europe, North America, and South America, what if I had NATO and not NATO, / NATO? You would want to drag that NATO here and here, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. You would want to drag the not NATO down to South America because it's not part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, right? So you'd want to tell them, you'd want to tell H5P that both of these can have infinite number of instances dragged from them. Rather than having two NATOs, you're just going to want one that can be duplicated, right? Because if you have two, you're sort of giving the student a hint that there's two places that it should go. And then how are they to know which NATO goes to Europe and which one goes to North America, right? So it's designed to ask this question, how many? Do you want an infinite number of draggables or do you want a finite number of draggables? So you have to answer these three questions, both for the drop zones and for the droppable text. Does everybody kind of understand what's going on here? Theoretically, before we get into the settings. It'll help you understand the settings once we look at them, to understand the relationship between the droppable and the draggable. So, let's find, I'm going to do the second type of question where we have an infinite number of draggable instances. So, first of all,
and the target for London's rumour mongers.
The target for London's rumour mongers, no less. All right. I just love it. It's awesome. The first thing that we're going to need to do before we even get started, I want you to open a new tab. I'm going to get my image from Wikimedia Commons. Feel free to use Wikimedia Commons for this too. I'm choosing to use Wikimedia Commons because it is a place where you can get openly licensed images. I know you've all probably heard about the copyright goblins out there on the internet. Wikimedia Commons specializes in providing either copyright-free or openly licensed images that you can use without having to pay for them and without getting copyright penalties. They also have cool images like that one. I'm going to use that in the presentation sometime. Anyway, I'm going to search Wikimedia Commons for Great Britain map because I have an idea for I want students to identify where the Romantics geographically had influence in Great Britain. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Same idea as this NATO, non-NATO thing. Romantics, non-Romantics. It's just going to be restricted to Great Britain because we're talking about British poets here. So I'm just going to come through and I'm going to find, here we go. This will do the trick. I'm going to open up that, and then it'll provide me a handy download button right here. So I'm going to download this file. You can search for carpals or maybe some other anatomy thing or sedimentary layers or whatever it is you want to do with the drag and drop image question. So feel free to go ahead and find an image that's relevant to you. So I'm going to download that file. And I'm just gonna drag and drop it onto my desktop here so I can find it. You would also, if you just click download, you'll download it, and by default, it'll go into, this is just computer use sort of stuff, the little manila file folder down at the bottom, the file explorer, and then open up downloads, and you'll see there's my Great Britain template file. All right, so once you've downloaded an image, let's head back over to our Moodle tab where we've got our video open. Oh,
Sorry, can
and
you back up a second and tell me what you did to download? I was trying to find an image.
oh, so I just opened it up. So I was on Wikimedia Commons. I click on the file. And then I just click that image one more time, and it'll bring it up on a black background. And I should be able to download from there. Wait a minute. That's not what I did.
If you open in Media Viewer, then you get those boxes.
Oh, sorry. Here we go. Open in Media Viewer. And then there's the download button right there. You can also right-click on it and save image as. There's a few different ways to do it.
Right, okay.
And again, if you're doing a lot of management of images and stuff, you'll learn. But you can also sit down with the DLC people. And
Yeah, I did drawing comes on my spouse, but I can do now.
All right. So I'm going to head back to my video. And if you saved and displayed like I did, so I was just watching this thing, what would a student see? Anytime that you need to get back to editing, click the cogwheel up there and go to Edit Settings. And that's going to reopen this page. I think most of us are probably already on this Add Interactions page here. So I'm going to find the point in my video where I want to add this question. And I'm going to use the drag and drop question type. Go ahead and click that. I'm going to change all those settings to my preferred. Pause video, display for 1 second, make it a poster. I call it romantic geographic influence. You can call it whatever you like. And now, under background image, there's an add button. And so when you click add, it'll open this browser. You can go into downloads, and you'll see whatever image you downloaded there. I'm going to select that image and click open. Once I do that, it'll show me that image. So there's one more thing that's a little bit weird if you're not used to using images a lot. Task size. We want our task size to reflect the size of the image. Every image has its own size. They're measured in pixels. That's how many little bits of light it takes up on the screen. And in order to get your image size, open that manila folder again. Go to Downloads. Right-click on the image. So secondary click, the one that's over here. And open its properties. and then open the Details tab. And it'll show you the dimensions right there. 290 by 396. So I'm going to put those in task size. 290, 396. If you don't do this, it'll have the default size and it will distort your image. Have you ever seen where an image gets like squished down? Like anybody sent you an image where their face is like smashed out or they look really skinny or kind of like a funhouse mirror sort of thing? If you don't do this step, the image is going to come out with a different aspect ratio than it originally was. So that's why we take this additional step to tell it what size the image is.
Can you go over that again?
Yes, I can. So if we open the Manila folder, so it'll be down there at the bottom, that Manila folder. We go to Downloads where we've got our image. We do a right click on it and open Properties. Then under the Details tab, it'll show General first. Under the Details tab up here at the top, it'll show you the dimensions right there. And those are the numbers you want to put in the order you want to put them in. The first one is horizontal and the second one is vertical. And this screen is being recorded right now, so they will. You can get led through this again from the DLC. All right, next step is task. So let's click task down there at the bottom, and you'll see the image is now showing up in its proper ratio. Looks normal. So the first thing that we're going to do is add our droppable text. Right up here, we've got text. So click text. I'm going to say this is called Romantic Influence. Remember, the title and the text are different things. In this case, I want the title and the text to be the same thing. The title is for you. That's why they have this little metadata thing here. It's funny, they put metadata there to try and clarify for users that aren't very technical, but then they use a word like metadata. That's data about data. Wow. Okay, anyway. And then the text that's actually going to show up on the draggable is what goes in the text box. I want, in this case, because of the way I'm designing this question, an infinite number of element instances. And then I'm going to click Done. Now we have a draggable text box. I am going to place it where I want the students to see it when it begins. So I'm going to put it way up here, somewhere in the North Sea. Now I'm going to add another text box. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Click text. No romantic influence. In this case, what I see and what the student sees are, I want to be the same thing, so there's no difference between the title and the text. Again, I'm going to click infinite number of element instances. And here is something that is going to drive you nuts. Which one of these done buttons am I clicking? That's right, the bottom one. This is the Russian doll effect, where we're editing something inside of something else that we're editing. Kind of like a mirror tunnel. And yes, it is confusing. And yes, I have already told the developers it's confusing. So we're going to click Done here at the bottom in our smallest Russian doll. When in doubt, click the Done button in the smallest Russian doll that you have. And then here I have no romantic influence as a draggable. I'm going to put it up there too. Now, if I have space issues, it's clear that I'm kind of having space issues here. I can always click it, edit it, and I can take this text and I can make it smaller. Let's say I want it 3/4 of the size that it originally was. I've got a full, this should look familiar, these buttons. It's like using Word. And now when I click Done, you'll notice that romantic influence is smaller. And I can squeeze it down a little bit. Same thing here. I'm just going to pop through and do that real quick. 75%. And that way I've got a little more room. It's a little bit smaller. That's right. This is the most complicated one that we're going to set up. All right. Next thing that we're going to do is add drop zones. The drop zone is this little target looking icon. So I'm going to click that. Insert drop zone. I'm going to put the label here. The label is what I see unless I choose show label. Generally, what I want for students is that there's drop zones. They'll see that the drop zones are there, but I don't want them to necessarily see the label. But in this case, I want them to connect the name of the area with its geographic location. So I am going to show the label. This is where you would make a decision whether or not you want to show the labels of the students. If your label is the thing that they're dragging and dropping in there, probably don't want to show it. Yeah. So if you're doing an anatomy thing and your labels are the names of the bones, you don't want to show them the labels because then that sort of robs them of the experience of foot dragging and dropping. However, what I'm asking them to do here is different than that. I'm asking them to say, did the Lake District have romantic influence or not? So I'm going to go ahead and I like to use auto align because when you drag something in there, it'll sort of automatically sort of snap it into place. Yeah. Whereas if you don't do that, it can look a little messy. It's just my type A coming out. So here we go. I just clicked done and I've got the Lake District. Lake District is about right here. So I'm going to put it there. So now a student could drag and drop either romantic influence or no romantic influence into the Lake District. I'm going to add another droppable. Scotland. Again, I do want to show label in this instance. Enable auto align. Click done. Scotland's up here. Good for Scotland. I'm going to click insert drop zone again. And I'm just sort of cruising through here, making my drop zones. London. Show label.
Label the drop zone.
I'm going to put London down here. So now we see we've got these zones where they can drag and drop to say whether or not the Romantics had influence there. I'm going to do one more for Ireland. I'm just going to call it Ireland. Not going to start a green and orange fight here. Enable auto align, click done. Ireland. Okay, so now we have what's looking like a pretty good drag and drop question. We've got our drop zone set up. We've got the draggables set up. Now it's time for us to decide which of these are correct. So I'm going to go ahead and now I have to open my draggables again, now that I have my drop zones. I'm going to click edit, and now we see where we're getting into this step. So we're answering these two questions. We've answered the text. The droppable says no romantic influence or romantic influence. Where can it be dropped? What are the potential places that it can be dropped in? In this case, I want them to be able to drop it in all of them. So I'm going to select all of them. And we're telling it how many. So we put the text, we told it where it's possible to drop those draggables, and how many draggables we want. I want it to be dropped in all of them. I want an infinite number of element instances. I'm going to click done. Okay, so romantic influence is now ready to be used. I'm going to edit no romantic influence. Same deal. I'm going to select all. I want it to be able to be dropped in all of them. I want an infinite number of these draggables. I'm going to click done. Now, that one's ready to go too. Sweet. Draggables are ready to go. Now, we've answered for the drop zones the title, but we haven't answered which items are which correct. Now we have to go back in and edit these drop zones again. This is one of those chicken and egg scenarios.
Can you do it from your desktop?
Oh yeah, on my So I am going to click it, and I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to select the correct elements. This is Scotland. Scotland had no romantic influence. They were not interested in Percy Shelley's antics. And now I'm going to click done. Same thing with the Lake District. The Lake District happened to be where the Romantics went on their retreats. So the correct element is romantic influence. Go ahead and click done. Same thing with London. They had romantic influence. I'm clicking done inside the smallest Russian doll here. And then finally, Ireland had romantic influence. Percy Shelley was a big Irish independence guy. All the other romantics supported it. I'm going to click done in the smallest Russian doll. And now, my question is finally ready. So when I click done, want to try and make it where we can see the whole thing or as much of the thing as we can. So that's pretty good. And we can keep in mind that students are going to be viewing this a little bit larger. So I want the students then to do this drag and drop question at this time. And we've created successfully this drag and drop image question. Any questions about the setup of this particular item? Yes?
Can you change the size of the labels? Not the text, but the labels themselves?
Yes, you can. So if I go and I edit this question again, I'm going to scroll down. All I have to do is drag from the corner to make it bigger and drag from the corner to make it smaller. The problem is that if you make it too small, you're going to cut off your text because there's not going to be room for the text in there.
I mean, like your Lake District or Ireland, can you change those sizes?
Yeah. Same thing.
You can also, because I was just playing around with it, the size right there, when you click on it, and it shows you the size, the dimensions of the box. Yeah, you can edit those if you just click on the numbers that are in the size. So if you figure out,
I can make it full screen and my text doesn't get bigger.
Right. So you're going to want to have, that's another issue. The text is fixed, whereas everything around the text is responsive. So depending on,
Because my image is big, so I'm assuming taking that pixel number to figure out its text size.
yes, and it's also, but you can edit the text size when you're editing the label itself. So you're going to want to find the sweet spot for your text versus your image size.
But when I go into the label of the text, it doesn't have the same. I increased like the romantic influence of those, but when I try to change that.
That one right there. Oh yeah, you're right. It doesn't have text size in there. It's got all the other stuff. I've never noticed that.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, that's definitely another drawback.
You know, I bet it's probably tied to the image size. My image is 10 times your size.
so is mine.
One of the things, yeah. So one of the things that you can do is you can edit the size of the image too. So if I don't know how to do this in Windows. Let me see if I can figure it out real quick. Usually, there's a place where you can adjust the image size in these editors. Nope, it's rotating. We don't want to do that. Maybe use paint. This is getting a little off kilter here. I use Macs all the time, so the Mac editor has a resize option built into it. It's like right up here. And there's probably one somewhere in here, I just don't know precisely where it is. Yeah.
That's fine, I can figure that out.
Yeah, again, I'd refer you to the DLC for help with
I know
that.
when I went to Wikimedia, they had different on your downloads, they had different sizes to get, which are different pixel sizes.
Yeah.
So I could start from there instead of using the largest, I could use one of the smaller ones.
Generally, they will have options down there, yeah. So if I wanted to look at a 480 pixel or a 240 pixel, I could download a smaller version of it to begin with. Some basic image editing skills will help you out with this. Most of us don't. Most of us never think of the size of the images that we take on our phone and send or whatever. But it starts to matter when we're doing this. So, and I know the DLC has resources to help you with that. But in terms of setting up the drag and drop image, that's how you do it. And then at the very end, I'm not going to add any more questions right now. Those are the 4 question types I sort of wanted to introduce you to. At the very end, you have the option of, after we've uploaded or embedded the video, we've added our interactions, now we can move to summary tasks. So go ahead and select summary task. It's an optional quiz that will appear at the end of the video. And it's always the select the correct statement. So this is a chance for you to have students at the end select which statement best sums up the main point that you want them to get from the video. The first statement is the correct one. So I'm going to put in here, Percy Shelley was a political radical that used his poetry to undermine the political system of 17th century Britain. Okay, great. And then maybe I'll put in a couple of other answers. Percy Shelley was a stodgy old British person. Maybe I'll add one more. Shelley was a member of the House of Lords. That's also incorrect. So go ahead and put your summary in there however you want to do it. So at the end, you have a chance before you scroll all the way down. You can change these settings. I think I talked about them a little bit earlier. But you can prevent skipping forward. You can show button for rewinding. You can deactivate sound, those sorts of things. So when I'm done with all of this, I scroll down and go back to Moodle and say, okay, I'm finished. Save and display. Go ahead and click Save and Display, and you will see your interactive video show up on the screen. H5P will take some time to compile before it can display, so it's normal for it to spin for a minute.
What's the text field is required? What was that one?
Text field, the title, probably.
Title of the overall video.
Of the overall video, yeah. So if you click save and it won't let you save, it takes you up to the text field as required. Title of the video. Oh, these are just summary statements. You can just click X and get rid of that. I'll just scroll down.
Yeah.
Save and display. And that's the title.
Oh, I was in the wrong one. I have my glasses on.
All right, so yeah, that's spinning. It'll take just a minute for it to file.
file image or program do you use on your Mac to edit?
The
images?
easiest one to use is Preview. So it's the default thing that opens up, and then there's a little, it's like a purse icon that will let you edit it.
Okay.
But I also use an online tool called Pixlr. I didn't really want to open it up,
No, you're fine.
but I can show you what it is. Pixlr requires some knowledge of what photo editors do, but it's free, and you can open it online. Like, for example, I'm creating a new image. I can define how big it is there in pixels, and then it'll give me the chance to do.
So this would be a good spot to go if the only image you can find has the label already on it to take those labels off.
Precisely, yeah. And this is if you've used like Photoshop before, but you can't pay for a license for Photoshop because it's really expensive. This is a good analog program to Photoshop. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and click through your video and try your questions and see if they work.
Of course, we didn't allow ourselves to skip, so.
Well.
We can take it off.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying, here we go.
Let's go back.
Yeah, just click up there and go to Edit Settings.
I can't stick it to say. What is it?
And then go down and under Behavioral Settings and this little guy right here.
I'm going to that's just the title for the whole thing.
Okay.
Thanks.
Looking back on the early 1820s, we can identify the end of the great age of English Romantic poetry. Wordsworth and Coleridge were already past their peak. Keats died in 1821.
So that is how we make an interactive video. Is anybody's questions? Anybody having trouble with their questions not working as anticipated? I can help troubleshoot settings.
Are the only questions you can add images to them, the drag and drop?
Yes, but you can also, it's not just text. There was a third option at the top of we had the drop zone, we had the text, and then we had an image. So you could actually have a little image that they drag and drop in. And that's what I would do if I were using mathematical notation. And I would create images from whatever math text editor you're using. One other thing that I would show you is a helpful tool in Windows. Let's say that I had something like this, like something from the video that I wanted them to drag and drop an image or a text onto. We have what's called the snipping tool. I don't know if anybody's ever used it before, but it's a pretty cool little thing. I just click New, and then I take a picture of the screen by dragging. And now I can save it to wherever I want to save it to. For example, I want to save it to downloads. And so then I could use this image as my background for my drag and drop item. So a lot of times there will be something specific happening in the video, and you might want to have that exact thing. Like, in your process video, for instance, for your labs, there may be a dangerous chemical that was left open to the side. And you would want to have an image of that, and you'd want to say, drag the circle slash to the safety hazards in this particular video. And so I would use the snipping tool just to take a quick picture of the video and then use that as the background and go from there.
And on this image too, I saw that there was an opacity, so you can make the drop zones clear, right?
Correct.
They can drop it. Okay.
Yeah, you can make them anywhere, but you can make them clearer or you can make them completely clear. Yeah.
A quick question on the asterisk, where you wanted a certain thing. If I said like the correct number is 1, 2, and 3, those are my little 1, 2, and 3 were my asterisk things. But then if you put 3, 2, and 1, it shows that it's wrong. So you really have to limit how you set that up then, apparently, huh?
You do. Yeah, you have to make sure that you have, because with the text drag and drop, there's just a one-to-one relationship. So you have to make sure that the student has a way of knowing, which one and where it goes. So the image gives you a lot more flexibility because you can do that infinite generation of the draggables like we set up for this one, which is a different one than the one that was in the original example video, where there was, again, a one-to-one relationship between the name of the continent and the draggable.
So there's no way in the other one to do that.
Not in the text.
Not a whole lot of images for debits and credits and balance sheets. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things. So you have to make sure you choose the right tool for the right job. You're not going to bring a hammer to a screw, and so you got to make sure that Not to say I haven't seen a hammer used to drive a screw before. So there's another sort of thing that I want to show you, a different application of this video. I'm going to open up, I'm just going to edit this one just to show you how it works. One of the problems with videos is that they're often long and we have short attention spans. And sometimes we want to use a video in a way that we would use a book as a reference. We want a table of contents. We want to be able to find which page we need. If your student needs to find out something about a process, a discrete process, individual part of it, in a book, they would go to the table of contents, find the page that they go to, open it up. In a video, it's much more difficult. You have to scrub through it. You can't hear the audio while you're scrubbing, and you might not know where it is, especially if you have a longer video, 20, 30, 45-minute video. So what H5P has done is they have created two things that are going to help you with that. Let's imagine that we have a video. Here's our video timeline. Starts at 0, it goes to 15 minutes. We might have this Shelley video where somebody who wants to learn about Byron, right? Because they're talking about Byron in here. So I have somebody that's interested in Byron. They're writing their paper on Byron. And there are certain points in the video where Byron is talked about. But they don't want to watch the whole video. They want to have a point here where they can skip to Byron, maybe skip from there to Byron, and skip to those points where Byron is. You might have another student who's doing something a little different. They might be interested in how Wordsworth interacted with Shelley. Well, those aren't going to be the same points. So might only talk about Wordsworth here and here, and maybe at the very end. And that student wants the ability to hop to where Wordsworth is in that video. So we might want to give our students the ability to navigate through this video in varying ways. Maybe we don't want to have questions at all. Maybe we just want to have the student interact with the video in a way that's customizable, adaptable to what they're looking for. So we have two tools to do that. The first one is a Crossroads. Now you can feel free to click along with this, or I can just show it up here on the front. I'm going to click Add Crossroads here at the very beginning. I'm going to display it for 10 seconds, and I'm going to pause the video. Now, the question text is, who do you want to learn about? Byron. Let's say that this first place where Byron comes in the video is at, well, this is kind of a short video, so let's say that this is 30 seconds. If they choose Byron, I want them to skip to the 30-second mark of the video. You can add optional confirmation text like taking you to learn about Byron and Shelley almost drowning, which they did. Next choice text, Wordsworth. Let's say Wordsworth was a little bit earlier. He's right here at 15. Go to 15. I'm going to add a choice. Just Shelley, thanks. Go to the beginning of the video, because the whole video is about Shelley, right? Now we have what's called a crossroads at the beginning of the video. If I save and display, then we'll see when I start playing that video, it pauses and it asks me what I want to learn about. Do I want to learn about Wordsworth? Do I want to learn about Byron? Or do I just want to keep going with Shelley? So I've given the student the option to either watch through about Shelley, to navigate to the section that's relevant to Wordsworth, or to navigate to the section that's relevant to Byron. So when I play this video now, I want to go to Byron.
That's the most radical thinker of all.
And so then it skips me forward to the 30-second mark of the video, right? I happen to have that question there already that we talked about earlier. But that way we can navigate through. I would then, at 30 seconds, want to add another navigation button. So I'd want to skip forward in the video and I'd want to say, okay, do you want to keep learning about Byron? If they click yes, then it would navigate them up to this 45-second mark or whatever. And again, at that point, they would watch whatever segment's relevant to Byron. At the end of that segment that's relevant to Byron, do you want to skip forward or do you want to keep watching? Does that make sense? So this is a different goal, a different outcome than simply quizzing a student on a video. And in fact, it's kind of the opposite of the original intention, which is to make a student watch the whole video. In this instance, you're acknowledging that the student's not going to watch the whole video, and you're giving them the opportunity that they don't miss parts of it. Any questions about that application of the interactive video?
I have my students watch a movie, and we have downloaded it, and there's a security code to get into it. Mm-hmm. Can you do that to a movie or just a YouTube video?
I'm not sure. It depends on the video host. Probably not, unfortunately. but I think that functionality is on its way. I know that they're going to integrate more hosting platforms than just YouTube, but then I think Vimeo is the next one that's coming.
That's what they watch.
Okay, then I think that's on the docket for the developers. This is a very new tool, and you're going to see added functionality as time goes on. So keep that in mind.
So right now it just needs to be a YouTube.
Right now, it just needs to be a YouTube video or upload the video to Moodle itself. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying it's not the first choice. There are reasons that you would choose to upload the video into Moodle rather than YouTube, and it being a copyright violation to put it on YouTube would argue for uploading it to Moodle. So you could certainly do that. A whole movie is huge, though.
Well, and my thought was it's a rated R movie. I would like to identify the places, for example, there's brief nudity, and there's like suicide in there. But, welcome to marketing. I'd like to identify those places, like, don't watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not too worried about that.
Well, there's a number of ways that you could do that. You could, have something pop up that says, prepare yourselves for the graphic scene or whatever. And if you have permission to edit the video itself, I know there are people in the DLC that can edit videos and they can actually censor it if that's what you wanted to do. I can certainly do that with permission to modify copyrighted work. Things get squirrely there in terms of copyright law, but it's not like it's impossible to do. So that's something to keep in mind. There's just a couple more things I want to show you guys about H5P. Any questions about these interactive videos before I move on? All right, so I mentioned earlier, now I'm just on the front page of my course. Feel free to click along or not. It's up to you. On the front page of the course with editing on, I'm going to click Add an Activity or Resource. I'm going to add some interactive content, just like we did before, and I'm going to click Add. So there's an item here called Course Presentation. If you like slides as opposed to videos, this is a much simpler, more accessible way to have interactivity with content. I'm going to go ahead and click Course Presentation. That's going to open this little Russian doll here. So I'm going to title this Presentation 1. And then I've got all kinds of things that I can do up here. Maybe I want to add text. So I'll click Text. Remember, the title is metadata, so it's not what the student sees. Here's what it actually sees. Interactive presentations. Maybe I want that to be a heading, so I'm going to make that a heading. To make students do stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and click Done. And then here we go. I've added some text to my first slide. Maybe I want to add an image. I'll click here to add my image. I'll take that little screenshot there. You do have to put in alternative text, as I know that we haven't had a full-on training at Casper yet for ADA requirements related to images. Alternative text is what a blind user will hear when they navigate past this image. And it's required by law that you have this, whether or not you have a blind student in the class. I'm not here to be the police, but I'm just telling you that you are required to put alternative text in for a good reason. So I'm going to put, this is aerial view of the Lake District. Okay. So and if you've never seen anybody use a screen reader to navigate the internet, I strongly recommend that you take some time and watch somebody do it, because you can actually navigate the World Wide Web without looking at it. And they use what's called a screen reader, and it'll blast through the thing and it'll read it really fast to them. And they use the keyboard to move through the different elements on the page. It is it's a dramatic perspective shifting experience to watch somebody navigate without looking at the screen. Crazy. So yeah, I recommend that if you have a chance to watch somebody use a screen reader, that you do it. Anyway, so here we have aerial view of the Lake District. I'm going to click done. Here's my aerial view of the Lake District. Interactive presentation, picture of the Lake District. And then what I want to do is I want to add a slide. So down here is add a new slide. You're going to notice that this navigation here at the bottom is now divided into two. If I want to see my old slide, I click there. If I want to see my new slide, I click here. Maybe I'm going to add another image real quick. Alternative text, map of Britain. Maybe I'll put some text here. Call it Ireland for my own reference. Blue area is the Republic of Ireland. The green areas are controlled by England. I should say Great Britain. Romantics had issues with, wow. British control of Ireland. So I'm just kind of building up a little explanation here. So this is a slide. And maybe I want to add a link. Title. The Irish Republican Army. Maybe I just want to link to the Wikipedia page here. So I've just added a link for the students so they can link out to learn more about the Irish Republican Army. And I could keep on going, add as many slides as I want to. And so what's going to happen is the students, when they see this in the course, they'll open it up, and this is like a slide presentation that they can navigate through themselves. They can go back and forth, and we can add all of those question types that we've already learned about. So the for Irish independence. It was started in, man, my typing is off kilter today. Let me get my life back in order. Let's see, when was it started? 1917. Let's imagine that I typed a really good item there, okay? So there's my fill in the missing words question. That was actually a fill-in, not a drag and drop text. So drag text would be here. So I can do those interactives as part of a slideshow rather than as part of a video if I want to. Yeah.
Import an existing slide deck.
That's a great question, and the answer is
No.
kind of. So what I would do if I had an existing PowerPoint is I would open up PowerPoint. Where's PowerPoint? Come on, PowerPoint. Blank presentation. Sample. This is a sample. Maybe I'm going to add a slide real quick. Romantics. Okay, so now I have the presentation here. I would go to File, Export, change file type, either PNG or JPEG. JPEG's probably best for this application. And so I'm going to save as web quality images of each slide. Put this in my documents. I want to export all the slides. Okay, that's great. So now when I go to my documents, what I'm going to find is a file that has an image of each slide. Okay, that you could have 50 slides, and there would be 50 images here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, exactly, add a picture. Documents, sample, slide 1, open, alternative text. You're going to want to describe what's on the slide for a non-sighted user here. So opening, title, slide with words, presentation, for instance. Now, having the alternative text is required. Functionally, describing everything on each individual slide is going to take a lot of time. Technically, the requirement is just to have alternative text for images. So you could say slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, but that would not fly with someone who isn't sighted. So we have to keep that in mind. It's kind of a workaround. But you could have the presentation like this, alt text, slide 2, done. So to quickly get slides that you're already using in there, that's what I would do. Kind of a workaround. I think we'll be able to do imports in the relatively near future that bring the text itself along, because if a non-sighted user opens up an actual PowerPoint presentation and you type stuff in there, they'll be able to hear each of the individual things that's on there. So that's part of what would come with a legitimate PowerPoint import feature to this particular tool. So I'm just going to save and display to show you what it would look like to a student. It'll spin for a minute. The good thing about the slideshow as opposed to the video is it's a little simpler to set up, a little more intuitive interface. The video takes some remembering about how to do it. So this is what a student will see. They'll be able to navigate through Hey, I was right. And then here are sample slides. and the student shows that they're finished, it'll show any questions that you've added there. You could have multiple choice questions. You could have those sorts of things. So, lastly, any questions about the slides before I move on to the very last thing I'm going to show you here? Lastly, you can do any of those independent question types as standalone items. So, let's say I wanted a drag and drop, just a drag and drop, no video at all. I can make it work just with that background image without having to be in context of the video. Now I'm going to have to remember what my size is here, 290 by 396. Great, task. Now I'm back to doing my drop zones, show label, enable auto align, done. London's down here, great. I'm going to put in a text. I can go into London, put a number done. And just going to make sure that I select that this is the correct one. Click done. And so now, if I go all the way down and save and display, oh, I need a title. This is what got a lot of this earlier. Now if I click save and display, what I get on the page is just that item instead of the video. So that way, if you just wanted to have them look at that sedimentary layer, or you just wanted to have them look at the bones of the hand, or you just wanted to have them look at a lab scenario where there are dangerous things strewn about, you know, knives and broken Erlenmeyer flasks and chemicals out on the tables or whatever, you could set it up just to be that standalone so that when they go into your course and they click that, all that they see is this activity. So H5P, getting back to the original opening statement about this, H5P is not one thing. It's not like it's a quiz. It's not like it's a workshop module. It's not like it's an assignment. It's a platform, the HTML5 package that you can do a number of different things with. The main application that people, when I show people about it, the thing that makes people go, whoa, is the interactive video. That's achieved something that we can't do with any other tool at this time as easily and as quickly as we can do it with H5P. Easily and quickly being relative terms, of course. It can get quite complex, as you've seen. But I happen to think the outcome is worth it, and if you apply it judiciously, you're not going to spend an overabundance of time doing the setup. And then when you compare that time that you put in relative to the outcome for the students, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck when you set up that tool. And then, as you know, you can import Moodle courses. So if you do this semester, then you import it into your next semester's course and into your next semester's course. You're going to have a long shelf life for what was originally a comparatively small investment in what is admittedly complex setup task. Yes?
So maybe I just got notice about Moodle. How do you import it into multiple existing Moodle shells?
Great question. Again, I will, in general, refer you to the DLC for help with this. But very quickly, open your admin menu in your course, click import. Your courses will show up here. You can also search them.
Yeah, and I don't want to import the entire class, I just want to import just the video.
I know.
Okay.
So I'll say if I want to import from this H5P, or maybe I'll do yesterday's workshop. Continue. Next. At this time, you have the option to select none. So I'm selecting none of these. But all I want to do is just that one item, right? So that's what I'm selecting. An idiosyncrasy of this is that you have to select the section before you can select a tool within it. So you have to check the selection and then the tool. So if you had one H5P thing that you wanted, you would say, I want that section, I want that tool, and that's it. If you had multiple H5P things, you go through and select all the H5P things, as well as anything else that you wanted to import. And then you just scroll down, you click next.
I guess I've never clicked next. I think I just always click go to.
You're not alone. So now I'm importing it, continue to return to course. And so that's going to show us the course. It doesn't ruin all the other stuff that I've done in here today, but it did bring that workshop over. So there you go.
It's also nice if you have like interactive stuff with a shell outside, like McGraw-Hill or something like that, and the grading and stuff. You can just pick that one thing in. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, and that would be a backup file, or those publishers get really weird sometimes. So
I'm thinking more like the grading tool and stuff like that. You know, where you have that connection with McGraw-Hill campus link.
That one,
you don't
yeah.
want to set it up all over again.
Right. Yeah. You just want to. It'll live out there on McGraw-Hill server, and then you can say, now this course and this course connect back to that. Yeah, those can be really useful. From an instructional technologist point of view, all the publishers are different, and it's like, what are you doing, Pearson, or what are you doing with Google or whatever? But yeah, those can be really useful.
You can put it in your share cart.
Oh, that's a good point too. I didn't know you guys had sharing cart here, but sharing cart's pretty cool.
You open the horizontal bar.
For add a block.
Yeah. All the way down at the bottom. Yeah.
Add a block. Sharing cart. So yeah, now if I wanted to take Shelly, just Shelly, I would copy the sharing cart. And then you'll see it show up over here in sharing cart once it's done doing its job. And then anytime you add the sharing cart block to another course, you can click to bring it in from there. Boy, it's taking its sweet time.
Welcome to
You guys, I think I know who your host is, and that doesn't exactly surprise me. Other questions about H5P before we break for lunch?
I saw that there was an interface with Twitter. Do they have any other interfaces with the other social media platforms?
One of the things. One of the things, if I can get this to come back up, I hope H5P works with a sharing cart. I didn't break everything. One of the things when you open that to add H5P, you've got, I noticed, 15 different types, and I focused on types of H5P content that are currently available. There are hundreds of different ones at this point that can be added to that, and you might have to request that of the DLC or your Moodle administrator. Yeah, there it is. It just took some time. So now, back to the sharing cart real quick. If I go to some other course, and I again add that block, sharing cart, you'll see Shelly's right there. I can click copy to course, and it'll give me these little things. And I can say I want to drop it right there. And this will probably take its sweet time as well. But that's another way to do it, just a single item, especially one that you're going to copy over and over again. But I'm not sure the full extent of their integration with other platforms. But if you have one that you're interested in, I would just search the web for it. So yeah, it looks like in addition to Twitter, it's got.
So welcome
this
to
is
this
for
tutorial.
Drupal, but they're standard across platforms. So if the H5P is just H5P. If it works in Drupal, it'll work in Moodle, it'll work in WordPress, it'll work in all these other ones. So if you wanted to have a Facebook feed, then I would talk to whoever manages Moodle and say, can you put in the Facebook H5P module for me? You might even be able to do it yourself. Let me see if I can do it real quick. So like these are the ones that are installed right now. But if I search for Facebook, for instance, nope, I can't do it.
Try Remind, because I know I've used Remind before.
So they're out there, but we can't install them ourselves. I know I, as an administrator, when I'm the administrator, Carol had the option to install these. So if that's something you want, I would contact whoever, probably the DLC again.
On the individual question, were you doing with the course presentation or with an interactive video when you did the individual question?
The individual question was actually drag and drop.
Drag and drop, okay.
So remember I was talking about that Russian doll effect?
Mm-hmm.
When you have a course presentation or an interactive video, you have the option to add a drag and drop inside of those. So if I started with course presentation or interactive video, and I wanted to interrupt the video with the drag and drop question, this is the same thing as what I would find inside of the video. So it's just like nesting down. And then there's also, I don't know if you have quiz installed. It doesn't look like it.
That's why I was wondering what's the big difference between just setting up a quiz question versus doing the drag and drop. Not really much other than you would show the video or something like that, I guess. Or not the video, the image.
From an instructional design perspective, many of the same cognitive outcomes can be achieved with quiz as can be achieved with H5P. So it's, I don't think it's necessarily like a replacement because quiz is more secure than H5P. That's something else. I want to make sure that everybody understands that I can hack H5P. I'm not really a programmer necessarily, but I can do it. And if I can do it, your students can do it. But it's a really small percentage of your students that are going to be able to do it. And I'm not going to teach you how to do it either. But again, I would think of H5P as a tool that you use for formative activities, not an evaluation, not a final summative assessment. H5P is not the right tool for your high stakes end of semester exam. Make that very, very clear.
So when you're, because you have the points on there and stuff, you're just saying it more just to see that they get all 5 points, they look at the video, but you're not really including it in the grade anywhere.
It's up to you, and it should fit into your overall grading strategy for your course. I do like to include like participation points as H5P and put that in that participation category. Maybe your participation category is 5% or whatever. Give them the option to retry the questions and make them retry it until they get it right. And that's how they get their participation points. And if you put those in a category and you restrict it to 5%, you can have 100 of these H5P activities that students have to go through to learn things to earn those participation points. But they don't override the value of your high stakes exams or your projects or your clinical activity or whatever it is that you're doing. So think of this as like the sort of supporting the first line of, this is your infantry going out there to get your students to on the ground, learn some stuff before you bring in the really more valuable cavalry experiences like in-class discussions, clinical experiences, papers and projects, presentations, exams, those sorts of things. So, yeah, just make sure it fits in to your overall grading strategy. And remember that this is sort of a participation-driven thing rather than a rock-solid assessment tool.
Audio upload, component, is there a size cap for that, for the create audio?
That is determined by the Moodle server. So I don't know what it is.
Probably.
Yeah, it's limited. I was hoping it was going to be better than movies. So.
Usually it is, it's limited, but it can be changed. I have a higher cap on the Moodles that I administer than most people, so if you want me to try and convince them to raise the cap for you, let me know. So yeah, that's and so as you explore and use with H5P, just remember where it sits as a formative tool rather than a summative high stakes assessment tool. Any other questions? Well, congratulations, we made it to lunchtime. I think we've got lunch down in the DLC, so let's all head down there, and then we'll reconvene here at 1 o'clock. And we'll go until 4 o'clock, and there we will be doing the Moodle workshop, which is the most powerful learning tool that I know of on a learning management system. And it enables peer assessment, not just peer assessment that assesses the submissions that they give, but how well they assess each other as well, which is wonderfully complex little thing for an LMS to do. So hope to see you at 1 o'clock.